we hired a technology team to support us with being on the cutting edge of some of this AI technology. I don't need to know all this stuff. I need them to teach me this or teach our team this. And that's exactly what we did. That's a who question, not a how question. You
Mm,
asked a how question. I answered it with a how question, how response, but it really came from a who question.
yes.
Who can teach us how to do that? And that's the way I would invite entrepreneurs to consistently think. It's like a who question, not a how question.
This is the Passive 25K podcast, a podcast built around the vision of creating wealth through passive income for ourselves and others. The idea of creating income while you sleep seems like a dream come true, but for most professionals, turning this into a reality is a different story. On this show, you will hear real people breaking passive income streams down to the basics, giving you the next steps to start your own passive income journey. If you're new to the show, my name is Kyle Reedstrom from Fargo, North Dakota, where I get to work with my team of agents and investors each day to complete our goal of $25,000 a month in passive income. Now, let's get right into our next conversation. This is the Passive 25K podcast with Kyle Reedstrom. We are the home of Passive Income University. We help working professionals with one source of income start and complete their passive income journey. A quick story around some of the energy in our group right now is around paying off debt. We've been having great conversation around how you can increase your cash flow by actually killing that debt that's nagging you. I know debt can be scary, but it's fun to have community around it. You guys find us at p25kg.com if you're looking for next steps. Click the buttons on our links. Let's talk, let's have a game plan. But today, I've got my guest, Mike Abramowitz, and we get to talk about a cool part of the passive income journey, how to pacify your active income streams. And Mike is an expert in this space. He's a fellow front row dad. Mike, thanks for being on with us, man.
Yeah, I'm really excited. It's gonna be a fun topic.
Yes. And Mike, this is your wheelhouse. Mike, your story with your family, your pivot in business is amazing. I know it serves as a major testimony to everything you do with your brand, Better Than Rich, which is growing. I mean, it's super cool to see the energy you guys are putting out around that brand. You've written 9 books, 2 of which have reached Amazon bestsellers, and you've spearheaded amazing initiatives to feed the homeless in your community. Man, you've done some amazing stuff, but I really want to give you voice to introduce yourself to our audience. Kind of take us and share us with the summary of your story from how you got where you're at today.
Sure. The story really, it's actually funny. My entrepreneurial story started, I recently just shared this. Not many people know this, Kyle. I used to throw parties in my house growing up in my teenage years. And I bought a vending machine at a garage sale, yard sale for $50. I would load it up with candy bars, buy them at 25 cents a piece and sell them for 75 cents. I would go to Planned Parenthood and get condoms for free. And I would put that in there. My parents would go out of town. My older sibling's friend, I would have them buy a keg. I would buy solo cups and I would sell $5 a cup to every kid who came in. I would advertise it to the school, throw it on a Friday night. My parents would go to Atlantic City. I would rent out one of the rooms in the house, for put the condoms you use, right? And I would turn like a $400, $500, $600 profit on one party. And I did probably 5, 6 of those during high school. And I was doing entrepreneur stuff before I even knew what entrepreneurship was. So I got into selling Cutco when I was 18 and sold Cutco all the way through college. I have my bachelor's in industrial engineering with a minor in leadership studies from USF. And I've been in direct sales with Cutco and Vector Marketing for 20 years. And really that's by my stomping grounds with understanding sales and business. But in the recent years, I realized like I was an operator inside my direct sales business for so long that entering into my older stages, I'll be 38 this June. So it's, I knew I couldn't be an operator inside my business while also wanting to be a father and a husband and contribute to my community. So there were certain pivots there, whereas like, how can I free up my time while being in direct sales where the direct sales business can flourish without me being there, putting some of those systems in place to win back some of that time while still sustaining profits. And that was where I hired a coach. And that coach is now a business partner. And we created a company now to help teach other busy, overwhelmed entrepreneurs to do what I did in my direct sales business, because that direct sales business produces 6 figures in net profits and every year for me without me being there. So it's a really cool model to now teach other people how to do that. And obviously I could get into the specifics, but that's like the general overview of, my story and where I'm at and where I was. So
Yeah, man, that's super funny to hear, and I'm glad you turned your powers for good, your entrepreneurial powers for good, even though the parties probably were awesome. But yeah, dude, super cool. I think a lot of entrepreneurs have those early entrepreneurial stories. I think they're unique. I know mine was a little lawn mowing business, like many. But Mike, I really want to dive into some of the details around Better Than Rich, because I think what you're doing is unique. And I want the audience to know what you guys do and why you guys do it. You touched on just the surface there, but you said something that's got to stick with everybody. You said you have a 6-figure sales business net profit that's working without you. And everybody's like, whoa, wait. What did we just say there? And that doesn't just happen overnight. And that's really the business that you're in. That's what Better Than Rich does is around a lot of that. So I want you to dive in there.
sure. So the short of it is in 2017, 2016, 2017, I started putting these systems in place. When I say systems, I started simplifying the processes of my direct sales business to make it easy for a 17 to 22-year-old with no experience to be able to model without me being there. So I questioned everything. I took every single scenario, every part of that business, every department. I put it in like my marketing department, the sales department, the fulfillment department, administrative department, payroll, every single department of the business. And I put if-thens, flow charts for every single individual part. If then, all the different flows. And then question, where could we put in tech, some sort of automation or technology in place to make that if then possible? And then it's like, where can I put team? What is the team that could be put into place? Humans, specifically offshore assistants or lower cost wage workers than me, into place to get some of those processes done. So build out this entire process, because at Better Than Rich, we define a system as a series of processes, policies, and technologies that aid in the goal of the business. What is a process? A process is a series of if-then statements. So that was the first thing I did. All these if-thens of the business. The policies are just written documentation to back up those if-then statements. So the policies were these documentation. For me, that was a bunch of Google Docs. There's a bunch of Google Docs and Google Sheets, and that's how we tracked everything. And so the documentation that back up the process of who's doing what, by when, and then the technology, well, our technology was WhatsApp for our internal communication channel, Google Sheets for our tracking, Google Docs for our templates that we would follow. Then we brought in Thinkific for our learning management software that we would use to host our videos. We use Loom to record our videos. We use Zoom for recording our meetings. So using some of these technologies to aid in some of this, using Zapier as one of the automations to speak, so that way our texting platform is speaking to Gmail, so it's sending a text and an email at the same time, and both of those are getting triggered by a Google Sheet populated by someone filling out a Google form. So it's like the technology and all of that being able to communicate happening behind the scenes, so a human is no longer the bottleneck. So these are the things I was questioning on, how can we get all these things done? So I was building that out 2016, 17, 18, 19. And then when COVID hit 2020, it was like, all right, let's test all of this stuff. And when a lot of companies were floundering with uncertainty during that time frame, I was ready to just push play, and we pushed play, and the business just was crushing. I mean, we did though the record in my category I was in was 2.5 million in sales for the better part of the whole, the company's been around for 60 years, and we did 2.4 million. So we just missed the all-time record by just a little bit in the midst of COVID, where most people were really floundering. So that was a test. And at the end of 2020, my son was born on December 31st, on New Year's Eve, 2020. And that's when it really was like, let's see if this really is going to work, because we didn't know, but he was born 26 weeks. He was born at premature, 1 pound, 4 ounces. And because of all those systems and everything I put in place, I didn't know I was going to be in the hospital for 8.5 months with him. But during that 254 days that my wife and I were in the hospital with my son, my business was able to run without me. So because of all those if thens and simplifying before the circumstance happened, I was able to remove myself during the circumstance. So 8.5 months, it produced over 250,000 in revenue and 6 figures in net profit. As I mentioned, without me there, I got out of the hospital September 10th, 2021. And I called up my now business partner, Andrew, and I said, we need to build underneath Better Than Rich. We need Better Than Rich was like a coaching company. It's like, we need to build something underneath Better Than Rich to teach other busy entrepreneurs how to do this, because there's no way. My wife became a full-time medical mama. She's taking care of our son. I already was making decent money, but it's now I got to replace her $75,000 a year income. And also with the same amount of time that I was spending. So we took everything, put it into the business. So my direct sales business was running without me. And then we started teaching these busy entrepreneurs how to do it. And now it's just this machine. And we're like, 18, 19 months in of doing this and taking these exact principles, teaching other people, living it with ourselves. Our business is doing since December, anywhere between $40,000 to $60,000 in monthly recurring revenue. And we're building our own business doing this, teaching other entrepreneurs doing this, and our entrepreneurs are winning back their time, systemizing their business. Like, we have one of our clients runs a mental health company, and her company was near bankrupt, and she's going to do over 7 figures this year again for the second year in a row, after being like negative most of her time before she started working and implementing some of these systems. We have another woman who runs a staging company for real estate. She 3x'd her growth in her first year of implementing these systems. She was a teacher, knew nothing about business systems, started putting this into place, 3x her growth. We had another one of our clients in sales. She ended up having 80 travel days last year. So was able to win back 80 travel days of her time while doubling her revenue last year, which was a really big win for her. So it's really fun just to see the results of what we're doing. On average, our clients will typically win back about 100 to 120 hours every day, leveraging our virtual assistant team. So just on average, that's about 3 to 5 hours or so that every one of our clients are getting back every single day, just by leveraging offshore assistance, not including automation. So for us to be able to build a business that allows us to leverage our genius while implementing this in my other direct sales business, while helping our clients win back their time, it's really been fascinating. That's a very, very long rant, Kyle, on what we're doing and what we do and what we've done. But I could go in any direction, but that's what immediately showed up for me.
Dude, that's what I wanted you to do. I wanted you to dive in. And I think as people were digesting that, they were having the same reaction as me. They're saying, this has to be the answer. This has to be the path to walk down. This has to be the way my business is going to move forward. I think there's a lot of ignorance out there with business owners and entrepreneurs. I mean, Mike, would you say that when you see an entrepreneur or engage with an entrepreneur, sometimes it's like, hey, I'm in the thick, I'm in the weeds, I'm running my business, I'm doing good work, I'm serving my clients. But thinking about doing the hard work you did, one of my favorite quotes, dig your well before you were thirsty. I mean, that's where it gets very real, man. If you would not have had the preparation, would your business have just gone to the wayside during a crisis that you weren't going to not prioritize, right?
It would have made me have to make a more difficult choice than I did, because it was an easy decision. It was like, the business is going to run, I'm going to spend time with the fam, and that was it. And it was an easy decision. It wasn't even a decision because it was already made. But I probably would have had to question some things and trying to figure things out, because we didn't know how long we were going to be in the hospital. So more than likely, with that uncertainty, there would have been a lot more challenge and a lot more chaos and probably more consequences because of it. So to your point, I've been saying since that moment is JFK's quote, the best time to work on the roof is when the sun is shining. Same concept where these business owners, you said entrepreneurs. Here's what I would say to an entrepreneur. There's really a couple different types of entrepreneurs. There's the salespeople who are really good at sales that said, you know what, I'm going to become a business owner. And salespeople are really good at transactions, But business owners, entrepreneurs need to understand systems and operations. And systems and operations is different than transactions. Transactions is a part of the machine, but it's not
Yeah.
the whole machine. So it's important that those individuals sometimes get lost. And then there's individuals who really love like a certain skill or a certain service, or they're really passionate about something. So they start a business. I love cars. So they start a mechanic shop, or they really love fixing things. So they, whether it's plumbing or something else. So they start a business, but that if they're the one that's really good at that skill, they're good at the skill, which is the fulfillment, but they're not good at the systems and the operations. So that's where they get a little stuck. So they're already going into becoming a business owner or an entrepreneur with the lens of I'm going to be working inside the business doing the thing versus working on the business to set up the machine where the thing gets done without me. So it's a different
Mhm.
flip of a switch, and that's where it gets stuck for most people. So what we teach our clients on what to do is start small. What are the gaps in your schedule where you could start working on the business in these small gaps? So for some of our clients, it might be just 1 hour to start the day. 1 hour to start the day, just work there, work on the business, just in strategy. And then it'll grow to a half a day on like a Monday. Let's just take 4 hours, turn off the phone, and just strictly work on design. What are the
Mm.
design principles? What do we need to work on the business on? Just creating the space in the schedule for imagination and creativity to exist. So we start small with some of them. Right now, I'm taking 3 weeks. I'm taking 3 weeks off, and I'm shutting off all technology and taking a road trip with the family, and like that's really cool. I took a week off when you and I we went to Utah at a retreat. It's like to be able to do that where you take these longer periods of time, and that's where really beautiful creativity can show up as well. And that's something you could eventually build to as an entrepreneur. But I think starting small, having time set aside to work on creative thinking, or at least allow creativity to exist, where you're not just being in a reactive mode constantly to like inquiries or phone calls or problems or fires or stuff like that. It's like it really becomes challenging to scale if you're constantly working inside the business.
Yeah, man, and I think that when I was exposed to ADS, automation delegation systems, as you guys say it, that was the foreign concept to me. Like I'd love to think that I work on my business, but I know my muscle memory is just to get in it, start turning knobs. And when I saw you guys giving groundwork to stop, and I think what you said might be really threatening to some people, like, wait, we're going to take an hour just to like design and think and time. How can you speak to people right now that are like, okay, all this is sounding great, man, but next week I got a full schedule already, Mike.
Sure.
The week after that, I got appointments that are booking in. Like how do you really walk people down this? And even more than that, man, if I say, okay, Mike, I'm going to commit to that hour on Monday, I'm going to start with an hour. I even want you to say, like, what do I do during that hour? If I want to start, and I know this is part of the coaching, but I just want people to get their minds going. Like, what
No,
would you
yeah,
do
let's
if you
let's jam.
get into design mode,
Two things that immediately show up is number one is boundaries. So you as the owner need to get clear of what your boundaries are before you can build any of this out. And what I mean by boundaries is your schedule is already filled because that's what you allowed to happen, which is good. You didn't know exactly what the boundaries are, or you knew what the boundaries are and you allowed people to book up your schedule for you. That's totally cool. And fact is, if you had a doctor's appointment or something that was really important that you had to put in the schedule, it would have been put in the schedule and you would have had all those calls booked around it. So you have to get clear of what those boundaries are beforehand. Your schedule filled up based upon whatever boundaries you allowed. So get clear of what you are willing to accept or willing to tolerate, or what are priorities for you. That's going to be number one. So if you create the boundary, people will honor whatever boundaries you're going to create for them. How do you do that, or how tactical wise? I use Calendly for all my scheduling. So there's probably, without exaggeration, maybe 25 different Calendly links that I have for all different types of meetings. So whether it's a client meeting or like internal facing meeting, or for multiple businesses that I have. So there's probably 25 different types of events, but they're all cross checking with one calendar. So for my 3-week road trip, I just block off my one calendar. I didn't touch my calendar, my Calendly. So all 25 events didn't change. The only thing that changed was I just went in and blocked off from 8 to 9, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. for those 3 weeks. So anyone who clicks on any of the events to book a time with me, they say that I'm unavailable. So I didn't have to go into, in fact, I didn't have to do anything because my virtual assistant is who blocked off my calendar for me. So that just a little small little asterisk there. But anyway, but the whole concept is no one gets on my calendar unless they have a link, and they have a link that cross checks the availabilities that I already put, which is 9 to 5 Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and 9 to 3 on Friday. So all meetings are put into that filter, everything before and after those times, around those times. So that's number one. Number two question that you said is, what do you do within the time that, so Mondays I work on the business, mornings I work on the business. What do you do with that time? I would recommend, if someone's starting out square one, I would say, make a list of all of the activities that you do that are under $25 an hour. That's where I would start. Make a list of all the activities that you do that are under $25 an hour, or that you could pay someone else to do for under $25 an hour. That would be number one. And then I would build out a structure to hire a team to take all of those tasks away from you. That would be step number two that I would design. What are all my under $25 hour tasks? How can I build a process to hire a team to handle all of those for me? That would be number two. Then number three, once I have that offloaded, then I would say, what are the $25 to $75 an hour tasks that I do? All of those items. And I can I can give you a list of what those might be if you want, but just to capture the concept here, then I would say the same thing. What type of team and tech I could put in place to offload those tasks for me? So that way, everything that's above $75 an hour, that's where I spend my time. And then once I get a little bit more in that zone of genius, everything from 75 to 200, that's probably mostly sales. I would put a sales team in place. That's what they do. And therefore, all I'm doing is the over $200 an hour activities, which is typically going to be like strategy, networking, those types of things, depending on what industry you're in. So that would be the process that I would walk someone through, or that I would suggest someone to walk through if they're an entrepreneur and they're to say, what do I do to work on my business? That's what I would do to work on my business. Under $25 an hour tasks first, try to simplify them or systemize them or delegate those or automate those and build a system and infrastructure about them. Then the 25 to 75. What's under 25? I'll just rapid fire. Anything admin, social media, inbox management, data entry, any of that stuff. What's 25 to 75? Copywriting, video editing, graphic design work, anything under that vein. Then that might be running. Sometimes it's running meetings. Sometimes it's conducting meetings. That, depending on the meeting, it might be someone else who needs to do that stuff. So depends on the industry.
Yeah, and when this falls in that simple, not easy category, right? Like this stuff it's like, I've heard this, man. This makes sense. Like, how do I not have a list of all those activities? And I just want to remind the audience, anybody that's owning a business, anybody that has a business that's active, it's making, money, and they want to move towards this more of that time freedom, having options, this is absolutely crucial for you to eventually get any sort of reprieve. You have to think through these things. When are you going to do it? It can't always just happen in the shower, And so what you just said, in 1 hour, I could definitely accomplish that in 1 hour. And then by repeating that, that time block, that boundary that I have in my life, like, man, I could see where you'd slowly move the ball downfield. But I still want to key in on like resistance that you feel from entrepreneurs. Like this has to be like, I'm having ahas, Mike, but I'm not it's hard for me to change, right? Like, is this common? It's just like, man, these entrepreneurs are their own worst enemy. Yeah.
It's the control thing. So it's like, oh, you don't understand, Mike, they can't do it as good as me, or I'm the one that has to do it. And there might be some truth to that. And there also might not be that much truth to that. So it really just, it depends. But what I would say is the control thing is real. And
Yep.
it's also really, it's a real limiting belief. So
Yeah.
we do need to, we need to strengthen our relationship as business owners, because we have to understand, what is the outcome here. Here's a philosophy, right? What is the desired outcome of what I'm looking to do? I would
Yeah.
always suggest a business owner to start there. Outcomes first. So it's like, but I have all these tasks. Tasks are irrelevant. Activities are irrelevant. What's the outcome? So if we had to go with an example, let's say someone who's in real estate, since that's probably who a lot of individuals listen to the show. What is the outcome? The outcome is get the house sold, right? It's like
Yeah. Yep.
get the house sold. If that's the outcome, cool. How many houses do we want to get sold this year? Let's say it's one a month. All right, we want to get 12, maybe it's two a month, 24. All right, we want 24 houses sold. That's two a month. All right, we want 2 transactions a month. Let's make a list of every single action item and every task that is under the umbrella of maybe even do it in departments to get a house sold. What are all the things that need to get done? Great.
Mhm.
So now we take a look, and here's the thing about the entrepreneur. It's like, oh, the control thing. By making it objective, it's like, if somebody else was going to, if this was someone else's business, not yours, just objectively, what are all the tasks that need to get done in order to achieve that outcome? Cool. Then we could start saying, huh, who else can do that?
Mhm.
Who else might be able to do that? Who might be able to handle that? I'll tell you right now, all all of this started for me was, I have those 9 books that you alluded to. I went to fiverr.com. This was the first experience I had with virtual assistants. It's like these cover designs, if anyone's watching the video, like that was someone on Fiverr. I went to Fiverr, search graphic design for book covers, and I copy pasted a template and sent it to a bunch of people saying, "Hey, I'd really like a book cover design. Is this something you could specialize in?" Copy paste, copy paste, copy paste. This is the title. See what you could come up with. I sent it out to a bunch of people. A bunch of people responded. I had conversations back and forth. I picked a few test projects. This is something we
Yep.
teach, how to do test projects. And then boom, got some responses. The book cover design ended up costing me like less than $100. And then I
Yeah.
found the person I wanted. And then it's the same thing for the copy editing of the book itself, the designing it for Kindle to get it published in the right format for Amazon direct publishing. But what's the point? The point is, that was like delegation principles number 101. And
Yeah.
now I have a team. I mean, I have a team of 24 offshore assistants that do nearly anything you could possibly imagine that you might think is me. Is oftentimes, not all the time, but oftentimes it's not me, but they're working through me. So it's like, they'll send me a
Yeah.
screenshot. How would you respond to this? I respond to them, and then they're actually pushing the buttons. So it's me, but I only look at one place. I
Yes.
look at Slack. My
Yes.
VA is in my Gmail. They're in my Outlook. They're on my Facebook. They're on my Instagram. They're on my LinkedIn. So all the other platforms they ask me, how would you respond to this? I show them how to respond. So I only am looking at one platform versus 7 platforms. So I don't have to get distracted, because you and I both know, Kyle, you start looking at these other places. It's not
Yeah.
just that one task, it's all these other tasks. And that's usually a time suck.
Man, that's outcomes first, not tasks, man. That was a huge nugget there. And there's a huge amount of hero syndrome that I've heard the term hero syndrome with this stuff. Like, we want to be the one with the cape. We want to be the one that presses the buttons, man. And if you get back to the outcome, why you started the business, why you do the business, a lot of times it's much greater than I do it because I need to type every email back to, and Mike, I want to share a little tidbit from the retreat. We had some good conversations at the retreat that you and I went to in Park City for Front Row Dads. And you had made an amazing post in our thread. Said, after I went back and looked at all the emails that I missed during the week that we were gone, having quality time with high level thinking, people that want to be great dads, have great marriages, you're like, less than 10% of my emails really, if you wanted to, required my hero, for me to be the hero, And that's probably the truth for a lot of us, man. And
Yep.
So I just think I think it's so relevant. I think you're hitting on so many high notes here. We're gonna take a little break, and when we come back, I love talking about examples. Mike, you've already touched on a couple, but I want to get back to where we started on, like, hey, if someone's like really keen in on this, what are some of these initial baby steps? What are some of the steps along the trajectory that you did over those 3 years to dig that well before you were thirsty? We'll be right back. Hey, wanted to take a quick break from this week's episode, wondering if you've been asking yourself the question, how do I get started in this stuff? Or what are the next steps? Or where are people that are thinking the same way I am, or that are already doing this stuff? People that are on their passive income journey. Well, we were getting this question a lot. And that's why we were prompted to create a community of like-minded investors and entrepreneurs that we call Passive Income University. This is a place where we have a library of videos of things we've done and ways you can educate yourself on the passive income space. We've brought in experts and had conversations of people that have done this, are currently doing this, and have completed certain parts of this. We have gathered a collection of tools, information, spreadsheets, checklists for you to use in order to continue on your journey in the passive income space. We are going to learn and grow together in order for us to start, take next steps, and complete our passive income journey. If you're curious about taking your next steps, check out our website at p25kg.com, where you can apply to be a part of Passive Income University today. We are back on the Passive 25K podcast with Kyle Reedstrom. Our episode is how to pacify your active income streams. Pacify with a creative term there for turning your active income streams into more of something that's automated, delegated, and creating systems. Mike, you were touching on a lot of ahas for entrepreneurs out there, ways that they can start working on their business and putting these systems in place, because there might be a day that you need to step into the actual priorities that you have in your life, and your business needs to play second. And you don't want to be sitting in that moral dilemma. You don't want to have to make those hard decisions. And for Mike, it was easy because he had the things set up. Mike, I love examples, and I just want you to walk us through, maybe some of those years when you started this. Like you talked about some of the steps you took already, but I want to get into like maybe another business example, some of the success stories you've seen. How did some of these entrepreneurs that they listened to what you were saying, they started to grasp it, but then they had to start taking the action in order to take a business that was going possibly to go bankrupt to going into seven figures? Talk us through how that like coming of age story worked for this
Sure.
process.
Sure. I'll use that one as an example. I could use several examples, but for her specifically, the big challenge was onboarding clinicians. So she runs a mental health facility. So every business, I think, has a similar struggle that she has, where they have two infrastructures to build. One is client facing and one is more of the internal. So, but those two journeys of hiring and onboarding internal staff while also attracting new clients into the business, they're very similar funnels and similar models, but I don't think most people treat it that way. And she wasn't treating it that way. So what we set up was for her internal operations, you could call it under HR, you call it whatever it is, but the internal staff, she needed to have a staff in place to help with fulfillment. So all of her clinicians. So we built out an onboarding structure. So how could we automate and delegate, like getting ads placed by a virtual assistant team and fielding the responses with a templated approach, putting those applicants for the clinician position through some sort of ringer. And that way, by the time the people that were actually qualified were able to show up on her calendar, and then she would do some sort of evaluation with those individuals. So we had this streamlined process of attracting clinicians into her practice. And then we took it a step further, because then once she hired the people, it's how do we get them onboarded and trained to be able to do the job as effectively as possible in the least amount of time. Her former process was 90 days. That's way too long to get someone trained to be able to do the job. And what she was finding is she was paying them for the 90 days, but they weren't doing any work. It was just like training and nesting period. She was hemorrhaging money paying these people to not actually produce results. So we cut that out. So we went through and we looked at what is the actual onboarding and nesting period. We knocked it down to 3 days. So we went from 90 days to 3. Okay. And how we did that was we took what's the meat of those 90 days, and we put it into videos. So we put them in a learning platform software. So they went through that platform software within that initial period of time. So the videos ended up being, let's call them 2 hours or whatever. They had 3 days to go through 2 hours of content. And then on the third day is when it's like, cool, we're going to start having you shadow and start doing work. And then on that same day, by the end of the day of shadowing, that's when they do their first actual clinician meeting. So what we took 90 days, we brought it down to 3. So the clinician was actually adding value to the business within that 72-hour mark, and getting paid during the same amount she was paying them, but they're generating results for the business. So they're not just like eating up capital. So that was just the model of the internal operational side. Then we take it similar model for the lead gen. So how do we have same thing? We want to create applications constantly for good quality clinicians. We want to have applicants for patients that need mental health. So we put in a lead gen model, prospecting for these individuals. So we went to different social media groups, LinkedIn and Facebook groups, and had our virtual assistant team go in there and organically have conversations inside those groups, commenting, liking, dropping into their inbox, having conversations with them, seeing if they're a qualified candidate. And if they are, adding them to a spreadsheet, and then sending a Calendly link to hop on a call for an introductory call with someone on her team to see if they're a qualified candidate. So this whole infrastructure is happening without her, for low wage, because we're using Calendly, which is a technology software for like $10 a month. And she's using a virtual assistant team. Now we do have a virtual assistant service that she's using. So she's having this falls under that under $25 an hour work of people prospecting and organizing the list and qualifying prospects to get on our calendar, sending them the link. So now there's prospects showing up, and a funnel of lead gen happening. So now there's this ongoing lead gen happening with social media. Then we put in some Facebook ads. We updated our website for a lead capture. So that way people could go to the website and put a lead capture on the site for a value ad, which is enter email here. Well, what it used to be was like, do you need mental health, help? Not many people are going to raise their hand and say, I need that. Now it's like, enter your email address for the 10 keys on how to work through your mental health. So we created a value add sequence to capture their email. And then we have a drip campaign, put it in our CRM. She didn't even know how to spell CRM. She didn't even have a CRM, right? So then we helped her create a CRM, a client, resource management software tool. Now there's marketing and going on behind the scenes. So she's talking to people, even though she's not talking to them. There's videos of her, even though she's not there. So she's still influencing them, getting these prospects integrated into her business. So this lead gen pipeline, and then after a sales call, if they're qualified, then there's a sales process, and we put them through a sales process, which is getting them integrated into the culture, getting their schedule, getting their payment structure, all the documentation. So by the time they get to a clinician, the process is streamlined. So those same 2 processes that I just listed off, I know I'm going through this quick because we have an operator to owner course. We spend 12 weeks on this stuff. So it's hard to kind of like break it down to the simplest form. I'm trying to do my best here, but we build out those 2 infrastructures, those 2 funnels, those 2 processes with the system, process, policy, technology, put that in place for the 2 verticals, which is internal and client facing. And I'll tell you right now it's like this machine. So now she has graduated problems. So now the problems are, I have too many leads. What do I do? I got to find more qualified clinicians. How can we streamline that a little bit? And like, these are different problems. The problems don't go away. They're still there. It's just different. And the problem that once was, I'm doing everything, I have no time. The problem is not, it's still the same. It's not like she's like, oh my God, it's like, I have a lot, I'm spending a lot of time. she's spending time differently. She's still a busy, overwhelmed entrepreneur, but it's a busy, overwhelmed entrepreneur with actually like a machine that's producing revenue. And it's a different set of problems. That's where it becomes fun. It becomes a game. And we want to graduate. It's just like we're playing a video game. There's different levels. You don't want to stay at level 1 all the time. And level 1 as a business owner is a solopreneur doing everything. That's level 1. And you're just like check to check and exchanging the time for money. When you get to like where she's at, she's not arrived. She's still figuring stuff out. But it's like when you're at that level in your business, maybe that's level 4 or level 5. It's just a different focus. The focus isn't like, shoot, how are we going to get leads today? It's how could we go from where we are to the next level, to going from a $1 million operation to 1.5 to 2 million. How do we increase our profits? And it becomes different. So again, that's a very long example for one example, but I tried to pick one that was hopefully pertinent to a lot of different industries and trying to be as broad as possible with that explanation.
Oh, completely. And you touched on client-facing side. I think a lot of people think of like leverage and automation systems on the back end, like, oh yeah, we can get a lot of that stuff figured out. But you talked about creating the machine for actual, I have problems with leads. Like I'd like to get more leads in my business, and getting that solved without you just running around town, creating more sales, creating more meetings for your own calendar. Right.
Oh yeah. To that point, Kyle, sorry to interrupt. We just have a really great example. So using that strategy, that same like our engagement strategy, we'll call it, using social media, finding the prospect, having our virtual assistant team court them and have the conversations with them, and then they'll populate a spreadsheet. Typically, if you did 100 cold messages, Kyle, someone's listening to the show, you think about it, you send 100 cold messages, what would be the response rate to 100 cold messages on average?
Yeah, like I'm thinking you're getting less than 5.
It might be 5%, maybe 5% response rate. The only reason it's top of mind, because I'm coming from a client call. We just tested this, the last month was a 36% response rate. So 36%. So we sent out, it was like 270 some messages, and they got 87 leads. So whatever 87 was, 87 divided by 36%, that was how many messages were sent. So using the strategy, 37 response, they got 87 new leads, all said yes, like to whatever that initial response was. So the lead gen machine is real. Right. And it depends on the industry, it depends on what the ask is, it depends on whatnot, but having that machine that's working for them, and then having taken those leads, what do you do with those leads? Get them on a calendar. How do we get them on a calendar? And then it's like, what's the sales process there before it even gets to the owner? We have individuals in the capital investing space, a couple front row dads specifically, but one front row dad, he created this whole funnel where he's finding these mobile home parks, people who have mobile home parks. His VA is prospecting, finding leads of mobile home park owners, messaging them, getting them on a calendar, and then having a conversation with them. And then he's having this whole other process of finding capital investors, people that have money that want to put to work, prospecting them, getting them on a calendar. So he has a conversation with the mobile home park owner, and then has a conversation with the capital investor. 90 days, 0 to nothing, 90 days, he landed his first mobile home park deal using someone else's money. And he said, that already paid for the next 10 years of using the virtual assistant services on my first deal. So now the next 10 years are paid for. So everything else is profit, because it's just building the machine of prospecting and lead gen and capital. Like, it's just thinking differently. And these epiphanies come from working on the business. You can't really have these epiphanies while you're working in it, sending those messages, or, doing the actual clicking the buttons.
What you're saying is people are thinking this can't exist. That's what you just said. People think that, no, that doesn't work. Like, I have to be an expert in this. And in fact, a lot of the education out there is like, you need to be what you're saying is countercultural in the sense of like, I really don't want to turn into the one that knows exactly what to say to get an investor to, talk to me about investing money. Like, I want to be at the end, getting everything organized, and kind of closing that deal. And I think there's just a huge gap. I know there is in my head for how can you leverage that relationship that seems like, in order for me to get a mobile home park owner to want to sell to me, I got to create a bunch of trust, and I got to create I have to figure out these unique ways. It can't be like a volume. It can't be strategized. In order for someone to invest money, there has to be a lot of rapport and a lot of trust. And I think it's just a small thought. I think it's just really, the answer is yes to some of that, but there's also yes to everything that you just said, which is casting a net, using systems, and creating more and more conversations, kind of 10x stuff. And And the thing I really want to touch on is, how can I leverage a sales style client facing thing for somebody that's not living in North Dakota, for example? Like, well, North Dakotans want to talk to North Dakotans, don't they, Mike? Like that's a block, right? How do you tell entrepreneurs, like, no, like the people that we're using from across the world are not only competent, they're super talented and professional and have this dialect and very good, speaking.
Yeah.
Everything's working, right? Like, this is the block that's in my head.
Yeah. Well, here's what I'll tell you. We are on the cutting edge of leveraging AI to try to offset some of those for our clients right now. So we have there's one industry, they're in network marketing, and it's very very bubbly, like really very feminine. It's a leggings company. So it's like there's this brand. So what we're using is we're leveraging AI to capture their voice through their voice, and AI is then saying, we have match their style to okay, so it's learn their style. AI learn their style, then it's take the style that you just learned and reply to these comments as them with their style.
Wow.
So our VAs are able to, across the world, leverage AI to sound like the client. So it doesn't matter whether they're from North Dakota or they're from Jersey or, Florida, it doesn't matter.
So
We just capture their writing style.
The VA is saying, I know what to say, I just don't know how to say it. I'm going to plug it into my AI. It's going to say it the way that this better responded to. It's problem solved.
That's it. So leveraging team and tech. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And that's, again, what we want to do to free ourselves up. So it's very, this comes back to that limiting belief. It's very much important to have that open mind. That it's like, if you believe as the entrepreneur, you have to be in control, the only thing you want to be in control of is letting go of control and just it's the who, not how, the Dan Sullivan. It's like, who can we put in place? You had that conversation with yourself. Who's my Jory? Like, you didn't know his name was Jory at the time. It's like, who's my integrator? And it's like, oh, it's Jory, right? It's like, how does that show up for somebody? It's like, there are who's that can put this in place for you. And frankly, we just hired a technology team to help us with this. So everything I just shared with you, I just recently learned over the course of the last couple of weeks, because we're like, we got to figure out a solution for this. To your exact point, we have, nearly 100 clients. It's like, we got to make sure that we're serving them at the highest level possible. How are we going to do that? I hired a technology team to support us with being on the cutting edge of some of this AI technology. I don't need to know all this stuff. I need them to teach me this or teach our team this. And that's exactly what we did. That's a who question, not a how question. You asked a how question. I answered it with a how question, how response, but it really came from a who question. Who can teach us how to do that? And that's the way I would invite entrepreneurs to consistently think. It's like a who question, not a how question.
Mike, what are some mistakes you've made in this space? Like, you've learned a lot, and you've kind of learned it the hard way in a lot of sense. Like, you tested this. I'm sure you've had coaches around it. Like, what are the mistakes? What are the gaps that you came up with?
Man, all right. That's a loaded, really good question. So the first one was, when I hired my first offshore assistant, I did not trust her with anything. So the mistake that I made was, I didn't trust her with anything. So I was paying for me to do everything still. so,
I can literally see this happening already. Like, I see my tendencies being like, oh yeah, I know you can, I get it. Okay.
So that was one of the earlier mistakes with that one. And how I got over that was, I started recording myself doing it and then giving tasks, having her watch a video of me doing the thing, and then having her do it after I did it already. And then when she could do it just as good as me, like, now that she showed me I could do it, then it was like, all right, you could do the next one. And I'm talking some simple stuff like, take this and put it onto a spreadsheet, like small things. And now she pretty much runs everything. She's been with me for over 4 years and just runs it all. So, but that was a mistake. I wish I let go of control a little bit sooner, and incorporated the video where it's like just recording the video of how to, and then offloading the task, without having to, waste so much time, because there was so much time of me wasting going back and forth with her, and me still doing the stuff while I could have just offloaded it to her and trusting her competency. That was one. Another big mistake that I made earlier in my career was, um, I wouldn't have this drop in, like, I wouldn't have a pipeline of individuals trained and ready to take on a task just in case someone quit. So nowadays I call it SOPs, or standard operating procedures, or you could call them playbooks. So I didn't have any of that stuff in place. So when I was a newer manager in direct sales, if I had a staff member know how to do something, it was only with that staff member. And there was a
Yeah.
point in time where that staff member quit, I would have to then step in and do all of their stuff for them, retrain the next person. And I was constantly the bottleneck of having to find, source, hire, train, onboard a next person. That was a pain in the ass constantly, because I was
Mm,
constantly having to put out fires when it came to hiring new staff and onboarding new people. The solution to that is, anytime I hire a new person now, if I come up with a new process, I'm documenting the entire process with videos and documentation with that person, and I'm having them send me their notes. So sometimes their notes become the actual documentation of the process. Them sending me what they're learning becomes like the playbook. And then if they decide to quit, I pay them, and this has happened a couple of times where if they move on or move on from the company, I pay them to record themselves doing it. Now, right now, it's been a perfect score for me where they are willing to do that. But that might not be the case if they end on bad terms. But I raise my people in a pretty good way where it's just, if it's not a good win, no problem, but they'll still honor the relationship. So I'll ask them, it's like, I'll pay you to record these. So that way the next person knows exactly what you do. Can you take your mind share on these specific questions, take a recording, answer them. So that way the onboarding process of the next person, it's all documented. So all I have to do is say, you are next in line, watch this stuff. And it makes the
mm.
hiring process and the onboarding process. It's been fascinating how much time, like there's, without exaggeration, we're probably on the sixth generation of a human doing a task inside my direct sales business since I created version one. And I haven't touched any of the six generations from version one to now where we're at. So it's changed six different hands and I haven't had to step in at all. And
Wow.
and that's over the course of, I don't know, 3 years now. So 3 years for that specific process. So 2020 summer 2020, 2021, 2022. So this is the fourth summer that is actually in place. I put it into place 2020. So
Yeah.
we're on our fourth summer, sixth iteration. And without me
Yeah.
there, that's been a huge, that was a time suck for me in the past.
That's a major gold nugget for people listening. You would say, "Hey, I know we're going to part ways. Thanks for letting me know. Like, I wish you the best. However, can I compensate you? Can you go over these 10 prompts on how you do your job, what you do, how you think about your job?" So I have video recording of, like, for the next person, like, "Hey, this is how the last person thought. So I want you to think how they thought." And to a certain extent, right, you're controlling those prompts, and then also just recording things that they did as well. That's kind of the what you just said.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. And that becomes an SOP or the playbook
Mm-hmm.
for the next person. And we have tons of those different playbooks, and we do that for our clients too. So it's like, one of the challenges that I haven't experienced but some of our clients have experienced is they would hire a virtual assistant or a new team member they're not qualified, they're not good, but they just spent all this time training that person, and now they have to spend the time training a new person. So
Yes.
all they did, document all the SOPs. So every task that they train that person on gets up. That person, the virtual assistant, is documenting their, all their processes. We use, it's slipping my mind. There's a technology that screen captures the tasks as you're doing it and creates an SOP for them. slipping my mind right now of what that technology is called, but that can create an SOP for you. That's a lot of what our team uses. And that way,
Okay.
if we had to end up letting that virtual assistant go, or they're not meeting our standards, at least the client doesn't have to retrain the next virtual assistant. We have all those processes documented. So the next
Yeah.
virtual assistant watches all those videos, looks at all those prompts, and the client doesn't even know that we replaced we replaced their virtual assistant, because it doesn't matter, because the tasks are still getting done. It doesn't matter who's getting it done, as long as the tasks are documented in a proper way. So we've modeled it now for our clients, which is really helpful for them.
Mike, I'm really addicted to the way you think about this stuff. Like the way that you think about it versus how maybe my traditional brain wants to think about it is just different. I just hear it coming out. I think other people do too. Where can people find you? Where can people find Better Than Rich? Where can people learn more about what you're doing and interact with what you're up to, man?
I appreciate you asking and giving me the opportunity to share that. We would love to have a conversation. If they go to va.betterthanrich.com, you can click and get a complimentary. It's a free call. You hop on there. It'll give you some options of a link, and someone from our strategist team will hop on a call with you. And what they'll do is they'll do the dollar per hour activity with you first and foremost, figure out what your dollar per hour wage is, and then they will have you see, all right, if you're at $80 an hour, let's look at all the tasks that are under $80 an hour, and let's look at the ones that are above, and let's see if our team can help you take off all of the, how many of the under $80 per hour tasks can we help you offload? And if you want to hire us, we would love that, as we continue on our mission. And if we can, I'm sure you'll just at least get value from the conversation of figuring out what those tasks are and what that number is for you as a business owner. Our mission right now, Kyle, it's a really big one. We want to help busy entrepreneurs win back 10 million hours over the next 20 years. And we came up with this number of 10 million hours. We started figuring out, it's like, okay, if we could help an entrepreneur win back 100 hours a month, like what would that do for them? And how would they reinvest 100 hours? So if a busy entrepreneur had an extra 100 hours a month, how would they reinvest that? What would that do for them? What could that do for their families? What would that do to the divorce rate? What would that do to the suicide rate for teenagers? What would that do for the communities that they're in if they had an extra 100 hours of their time that they could reinvest into something that matters most to them? So we mapped it all out. We put it into our little calculator and figured it out, like how many clients we would need and how we would do this over the next 20 years. And it's feasible. It's huge. It's something that we're working towards. And we're really excited about that. And that's our mission, because Better Than Rich, it's like, what happens once money is not, let's define what rich is. Rich, time freedom, money freedom, location freedom. So what's better than that? And it's like, how could we get to that place of however you design what's better than that, to spend that time on what matters most? So let's help you with that time freedom and the money freedom, the location freedom. Cool. Can we support you with that? And then it's like, let's spend that time on what matters most. And that's our mission. If you align with that, va.betterthanrich.com, we'd love to have a conversation with you and see if we can help.
Man, thank you so much for sharing that. You have been super insightful. You're an expert at what you do. We can hear the passion. I love the energy, the servant heart you have with what you do, Mike. That's something that I'm really drawn to. And keep it up, dude. That's a huge vision, but I just have total confidence, like where you guys are going, your trajectory. Go get it, man. Make it happen. That's a huge goal. I love it. I'll end the episode asking you, the audience, what's one action step you can take based on what you heard today? There was a lot, you guys, but what's one thing that's coming up for you? Do not wait. Action is key. And if you're currently on your passive income journey, reach out to us and tell us your story. We truly believe that we can accomplish financial freedom better together. This has been another episode of the Passive 25K podcast with Kyle Reedstrom. If you liked what you heard today, I encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and like this video so we can get more of these conversations out to people that are curious about starting their passive income journey. And if you are thinking about starting your passive income journey, the next steps are to go to our website at p25kg.com and hit apply. This will get you into our application to join our community called Passive Income University, where you can learn everything there is to know about starting and completing your passive income journey. Thanks again for tuning in. I'll catch you next time for another conversation on the Passive 25K podcast.